it dawned on me recently that spiritual or even personal development isn't so much about trying to attain a particular goal or to develop certain attributes or powers, but is instead about chipping away the unessentials in yourself and in your life. And so instead of trying to gain something, we're actually trying to get rid of stuff. And I was watching a documentary last night about a boot camp in China for teenagers who have behavioural problems. They're basically rich kids who, you know, they're spoiled and they're playing up for their parents and not doing well at school and stuff like that. And so the boot camp had all these kind of exercises and drills to try and develop these attributes like respect and discipline and even love. You know, you must love your parents in these kids. And it reminded me a lot of my own childhood in the martial arts, the traditional ones like the Chinese and Japanese style ones where we do press-ups on our knuckles and all kinds of weird punishments for for not doing well in the class. And actually I loved it. You know, I liked it a lot, and I can actually say that the kind of the courage and the discipline which I learned from that training probably saved my life on a couple of occasions. So it's all well and good, you know, personal development and psychological development, but from my understanding of things now, from a spiritual perspective, kind of contradicts that, because to my understanding, spirituality is really about learning how to step out of our heads, to stop identifying with the mind and thoughts. So then an obvious question is, does that mean that if we were all to become enlightened tomorrow and we no longer identify with our minds, would we lose those attributes like respect and self-discipline and courage and even love for other people? I think in a way it would. Because if we look at, say, respect, for example, from our traditional understanding of what it is, from a mental point of view, is basically learned behaviour of showing respect to other people, saying please and thank you and such things. And really it's all learned behaviour, it's conditioned into your mind. But if you look at respect, although it's, I mean, the best word to use is respect, but from a perspective of just being, without the need for brain interference, there is an underlying deep respect that we instinctively, not even instinctively, we intuitively have for other beings. A kind of respect which means you recognize yourself in the other. So when you get rid of all the psychological stuff, instantly there's a deep resonance with other beings, which goes way beyond just saying please and thank you and stuff like that. And even discipline. From a psychological point of view, from our traditional understanding of it, it's actually quite aggressive if you look at it. If we say that discipline means that there's a situation, there's something that needs to be done, there's something we need to do, but it's an undesirable activity, it's something that we might find boring or even scary, and so we put it off, and therefore it would require a certain amount of self-discipline. We must conjure up in ourselves to force ourselves to get the job done, you know, to make it happen. And if you notice that there's an element of anger in there, you know, which in the big picture can't be a good thing. Although, having said that, I mean, it's that kind of assertiveness which I would say has served me very well up until very recently in my life. But again, if you take all that psychological stuff out of the equation, then discipline then means, from a more spiritual perspective, instead of assertiveness or aggressiveness, it means it comes from a perspective of acceptance. So here's a situation that we need to do. There's an activity which needs to be done, and yes, we don't want to do it, but it has to be done. And so rather than having to force ourselves with some kind of aggression, we just accept what is and get it done. And so it's a much more peaceful way of going about things, peaceful for yourself and everyone else. And so it's in the same thing for courage as well. Instead of having to force ourselves to do it, it comes from acceptance instead, and non-resistance. So it seems that the way we go about things in modern society is we like to add stuff. You know, for example, the kids in the Chinese boot camp who aren't behaving properly. Here's the dysfunction. You know, they have this problem, so to speak. They're angry and they're disrespectful and all of that stuff. And so that's there in their mind as a thing. You know, it's a problem. It's a behavior which is bad. So then we take new behaviors and try and instill that on top, and we try to you know, ingrain in them this respect and all of that stuff, and we want to put more and more and more. But really, if we start chipping all that away and get rid of all this external stuff, learned behavior, I think what we would find underneath is everything we've been looking for would already be there. You know, it's already there within us, and it's way beyond psychology and the mind. It's a part of your being, just sitting there waiting to be revealed. But instead, we're trying to find it, you know, find what's within us by putting more stuff on top. But in reality, I think we're making life more difficult for ourselves. So ultimately, what I think I'm saying is that personal and spiritual development is about having less instead of more, about getting rid of stuff instead of trying to get stuff.
Ye maya dhammano dhamma patipattiya buddhang pujemi. Ye maya dhammano dhamma patipattiya dhammang pujemi. Ye maya dhammano dhamma patipattiya sanghang pujemi. Addāye māya patipāttiya jāte jarā marana mahā parimocchasāmi.